Uh, okay, here we go.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Sarah Boxx, your host of the No Labels, No Limits podcast. And today we have a very interesting guest. We've been chatting as usual before I hit record. And actually, we're chatting about geography, which isn't germane to the podcast, but it's so interesting to me to find out where people are living because it affects kind of how we approach things and our preferences. But with that, let me say today's guest, Marcylle Combs, is an entrepreneur, leadership expert, author, and podcast host herself. She has over 3 decades of experience in the healthcare industry. So right there, there are a lot of questions and directions we could go. But here's one of the things that really piqued my interest about her. She's a certified John Maxwell leadership speaker, trainer, and coach. Now, if you know anything about John Maxwell, he's kind of up on the pinnacle of leadership. So there's so many things that I'm interested in pulling out. And she's passionate about helping professionals, especially executive women and men, to develop leadership capacity. But she does it through meaningful relationships and growth. So it's not just about the capacity, it's about the process and way. And she has a debut book, Never Hire Your Friends, with the word never crossed out. And it flips conventional wisdom on its head, offering actionable advice for building high-performing teams rooted in trust and friendship. And that's also an area that really piqued my interest because I like to consider the people I work with my friends. And if not super close friends, people I would seek out to be friends because of their qualities and all of the other stuff. So with that, let me formally invite Marcylle into the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm so great, Sarah. Thank you for such a glowing, introduction. That was wonderful. Perhaps much better than I really am.
Who knows? You might be underestimating yourself.
Perhaps. I don't know.
Hey, so I want to dig into the John Maxwell piece, but I want to start with your book, if you're okay with that, because, the invisible they,
Okay. Right.
don't hire your friends, don't hire your family, don't. And you actually have different advice and have learned that. So let's talk a little bit about your advice or the book's advice in never hiring your friends, never crossed out. What is a time when hiring a friend taught you something unexpected about yourself as a leader?
I love people, and I love getting to know people. And I think one of the things that I learned is that one, not everyone's like me, shocking. And so therefore they don't problem solve and come to the same conclusion as I would. And the greatest thing about truly exploring how someone else thinks and comes to the end of what they think a decision or whatever is is so different than mine, and many times really a better answer, or in collaborating that a better answer. I tend to be someone who is result oriented. I'm a visionary. I can see the end, but I don't really get caught up in all the potholes that it gets and the pitfalls to get there. And if I've learned from my very organized, very perfectionistic employees who then became my friends that I need them because it allows me still to get to the end, but it prevents me from making some huge mistakes. And when I have totally disregarded their statements because they wanted to take way too long or look at way too many angles, that I found myself in a little bit of trouble. because of that. So really, I think I've learned the value. I used to say, that you need to hire and become friends with all flavors of sherbet. I mean, we don't really eat sherbet anymore, but in my age group, you would, because they each bring a different flavor and a different color, which probably that bad food poisoning, food coloring that's poison. But they all bring that to the table, and it makes this beautiful picture together.
So that you've given a lot in there. And part of it is you said not everybody sees things as you do. So,
Right.
but you had to come to that realization, right? Because when we're in our own way of going, everything looks normal to us. It's like,
Exactly.
and then sometimes you can go, am I not clear in my speaking? Or am I so obtuse? Or am I the only one who sees this? And when someone
Right.
in your group can come and say, but what if we thought about this? Or this is a risk. Like I work with someone and that is her superpower. She's not negative. She says, but I think we might want to consider this first. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. It's not, I wouldn't have gone there. Not
Right.
first. I would have gone there after I hit the pothole and then said,
Exactly. Exactly. After I'm caught up with a flat tire. I believe we've kind of forgotten how to be polite and in this world in conversations, and what has made the United States truly great is to listen to all viewpoints and say, well, I disagree with you, but that's okay. I mean, truly, that's okay. We need to not understand whether you're right or left or in the middle, that you're only right. And only, I believe, only really having a connection or getting to know people allows you to come to understanding.
and that comes with a big bucket of trust, for people to be able to want, for people to be,
But we
right.
have to listen
Yeah.
to get.
So listening is the key, right? Okay, hang on. Can you hear me?
I sort of say, where I don't know if you have the ability to edit. I'm
I
hoping
do.
the
I can edit.
connection is
No, I
saying
can edit. What happened?
connection is unstable.
Mine or yours?
I
Yours. Rupert, I know this whole section here you're going to need to fuss with, so I'll try and mark it for you. Are you back?
Sarah, you back?
I'm back. Yes, we do.
Can you hear me,
I
Sarah?
can hear you. Yeah. It shows I'm stable on my end.
Wait, hold on just a second.
Okay, you got all the bars. I got all the bars. What's going on?
I've got all the bars too. I don't know.
We'll figure it out. But to your question, yes, I have the ability to edit, and Rupert will come.
Okay, good.
He'll do his magic and fix us up. He's so good.
Okay, good.
So it'll be fine. Okay. So you were talking about listening.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that we've forgotten, a piece of that. So go back and start with that and we'll merge it in.
I truly believe it's important to listen, and not only listen, but listen politely, so that our brain is not running ahead of, all the ways we're going to disagree with whatever the person's saying, to truly try to comprehend what they're saying. And that, there's words, but there's the meaning behind the words. And to try to clarify and do that politely. Um, I've had good friends who've been in Congress, and there has been a change in the last 10 years, where it used to be that they would argue hotly on the House floor, but then they'd go have a drink afterwards. They would leave it there and then go out. And we need to get that back, that we can be friends with someone that thinks different, acts different, looks different than we are. if we just try to approach any kind of discussion with those kind of listening, I guess, with your heart, instead of just with your ears and letting your mouth run away from you.
Sometimes it feels like the person's nodding or pretend they almost look like they're listening, but then it's a rebuttal. It's not
Right.
appreciative inquiry type of question.
Understanding.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not like, well, how can I know more about this?
Right.
Not a curiosity. So, you are trained in the John Maxwell and you're certified, not just trained. So, when did you do that? Like in your scope of career, at what point did you dive into John Maxwell's work?
Well, I have to say, one, John is a friend of mine, has become a friend. I have been reading his books long before I ever met him. And I have had the opportunity, my executive team, probably, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe close to 20, started going to a small executive group with John. And John wrote the foreword for my book, and in all, transparency here. But I've loved his books long before I met the man. And just the simple, straightforward way. Now, then I can't remember. I went back with a group of executives and got my master's in organizational leadership, and then went probably 5 years ago to John's executive coaching certification. And that truly is just a number of, online type program, and then going to hear him and other leaders of his do their executive coaching group. Just a great group of people, and very motivated to try to really change leadership at all levels, from elementary school all the way through business leaders. So, just a wonderful group. John also has a nonprofit called Equip, and it's their goal. They take many of their executive coaches and go to other countries, and they are putting his material in the school systems. I had the opportunity to go with John to Costa Rica, which was a great experience. And he has taken people, these executive coaches, all over the world, doing this leadership training.
So it's really hard to ask you to distill into a simple thing. So I know this is a difficult question, but if you were trying to explain to someone who may not be familiar with John's work, when you're saying he's trying to change leadership, can you put that into like from what to what? From this to that?
Well, I think he's trying to expand a person from being a manager, with a title, whatever that title is, to a leader. So a manager is a person, and this is a Marcylle Combs definition. So I'm not going to put this completely on John, but I walk, talk, and breathe John. So a manager is someone who can tell all the people what to do, can, direct and administer what's going on, but he can't inspire. A leader can inspire people to do the right thing. One of the fundamental books that I love of John's is called Developing the Leader Within You. And it really talks about how do you become the leader that other people want to follow. And that's when people are paid to do what you say. That's just a manager or supervisor or an executive. People who not only are paid what to do, but they want to do it. They want to follow you. They want to do that because of who you are instead of what your title is.
And who you are, man, this is really putting you on the spot because it's not about your book in particular specifically. But who you are is based on your own awareness and internal growth.
Oh,
Is that accurate?
yes, I think one of the most important things that a leader can discover about themselves is, who are you? What are your moral, ethical standards? Not to do with the company. Um, I grew up working in hospital systems, and they don't always, who you're following is not always what you might believe, and you have to decide where the moment is that there's nothing illegal or immoral for you about what they're asking you to do, then okay. But if it crosses those things, then you have to say, stop. I can't do this because of X. And each person has to come to that from a growth perspective themselves. I could tell you what mine are. I'm not going to lie about something. There might be times I have to be confidential because that is the right thing for the company, the right thing to do. Um, you know, I I'm not going to do anything illegal. Now I'm going to play hard and fast and competitive. I mean, don't get me started with, I'm some mamsy pamsy person. I am not. Because if you're competing against me, you are competing against me. But I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to play it hard, but I'm not gonna do anything that's illegal or against my standards. Now, again, am I human and I can get carried away in the moment, but I don't slam doors. I don't cuss people out. I don't yell and scream. I don't do those things. And some days, do I want to do all of the above? Yes. Amen. A yes. But I don't do that. Um, and I have to pick an alternate of what my behavior is gonna be in response to that. Again, have I ever made a mistake? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, who hasn't? If you're honest, there's no way.
Yeah.
We
Right.
all make mistakes. And in the moment we actually sometimes know it, we're going, uh-oh, I should clean that up. Or
I
those,
should back this up.
did I
I
say
should get out of this room.
yeah. Um, so thank you for what that is. It's really knowing your own internal stuff so that you can gauge along. And it isn't just adopting the company lingo, if you will. And that takes courage. It takes courage, and it takes knowing who you are. Now, you mentioned, you spent many years in the healthcare industry, and then you grew it to a multi-million-dollar operation. Can you just give us a little background on that, and then maybe share one or two lessons in leadership you learned from the moments when you might have wanted to cuss someone out, things weren't going so well?
Oh gosh, how do you summarize those two things? I went to work. I mean, I have a bunch of kids. I have 5 kids, and my first 4 all 2 years apart, and all boys, I might add. And I found they really like to eat. And my husband was in graduate school. So anyway, I kind of fell into this home health job that then became home health and hospice. And if you want to say who was the young girl in college, I would have said I was never going to work with the elderly, and I'm never going to sit behind a desk, both of which I've spent most of my career doing. So never say never, and actually have loved it. I love home health. I fell in love with this agency. I got put in a management position. Frankly, I only took it because I knew that the person that was going to take it. I was going to have to change jobs. And really, I had all these little kids. I was just too tired to change jobs. So I took this position. And I was not qualified. Oh my word, I was not qualified. You know, and the truth is, I fell in love with taking care of patients at home. And because I loved the work, I ended up buying that company. And because I loved the work and I loved the challenge of the game of growing something, I wouldn't say I'm a born salesperson, but I would say if you love something, you are going to preach preach that gospel, if you will, because of that. And so I caught the madness of growing it and doing more areas, and it became my passion in everything of doing home health and hospice. And still, I would say I love it today. You in essence are a government contractor because you're working for Medicare, and I sold that company 6 years ago, and I probably never would have, except for the beating it is to be a government contractor. That's too long of a story. So now I have a consulting business that does that. I think early on, the young girl that was so young and in this management position, I I didn't have a clue how to manage people. And really, I took this job, and about 2 months later, as the director of this little agency, I found out that all of the employees had had a meeting after I left work that day with the owner to say, uh, she's doing a terrible job and you need to fire her. I got a call from a friend that was running a different branch the next morning, unbeknownst. Truly, if you want to say what was the turning point of whether Marcylle just continued to be a worker, not that there's anything wrong with that, a great nurse in the field working versus growing as a leader. This friend who is about 12 years older than me called me the next day. She tells me the whole story. She tells me how they met. I cried. Um, and she said, Marcylle, really, you have one of two choices. You can bring them all in and you can say, you know, you either have to decide to work for me or not work for me. And this is how I would do it. I'd bring them in one by one. I'd sit down with them, blah, blah, blah. Or you can fire them all. This was the magic wand. She worked for the owner, and the owner was a man my age who was in his 30s. He didn't know how to manage anybody either. He called this director and another and said, really, I got to get you to help. And it was she gave me the magic wand of saying, keep them or get rid of them, your choice, I will support you. And so
But
really,
basically, I'm here. I'm staying.
but basically, yes. And
Yeah.
so you stay and you do this and you take care of business. And anyway, so it was that moment that I thought, I got to be better at this. Like I gotta and I met with all of them individually, and really, frankly, none of them ended up leaving. And I started reading every book known to man about leadership, and John's were some of that at that point.
Well, that's a powerful turning point. You know,
It was a big. I think of the wisdom of the woman who called me, must have seen something in me, um, that she thought I could be trusted with that kind of power. Um, I think back on that now. We are still friends today. In fact, in December, she's older, 12 years older. We're going on a cruise together. She lives in a different part of the state. We have been friends ever since. And probably still one of the wisest, if not the wisest women I know.
Yeah, that's a true gift. And also for someone to just be honest with you and say, here's what's going
Right.
on. Because it's those like quote unquote parking lot conversations that people have. You have no opportunity to even weigh in because you're not there. It's behind
Right.
your back. It's
Right.
I just call that kind of chicken, like if you're gonna well, if you're gonna talk about me, let me be in the room.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. And for being as young as you were, that's like a big wave coming at you.
Right. Right.
Did
It
that,
was yeah, was a very humbling moment. So for me.
so let's talk about your book. Tell
Okay.
people, tell me, since I haven't read it, but also our listeners, why you wrote it and what you hope we will take from it.
Well, the reason I wrote it is because I had many employees who, and in particular one who wouldn't let me sleep at night if I didn't write it. So she hounded me forever because I really I'm a people person, and I'm not a person who loves just being in my own head for hours on end. Now, the older I get, the more tired I get. So that there might be that. But truly, the book is really to say against conventional wisdom that you can hire your friends and your family, and it can be a success. And so, the cornerstones of that are honoring your employees and having honesty in all that you do and humility. So if you want to sum it up, is how do we hire our friends and our family? Is that you have to be honest with them. Um, and you have to honor the right for good outcome or behavior, and you have to be a humble enough person to hear other people's input. And so I we spend most of our hours at work. I mean, we spend them with people. Why would you just want to say I can work with them? Why would you want to spend your life doing that? I that's the part I didn't understand because I decided if I was going to be at work, I was going, and again, I did have the ability to begin to hire people on that dreaded day long ago. But I was only going to hire people I liked. Now, again, I work in healthcare, so there has to be qualifications for certain roles. But if I didn't like them on their interview, why would I hire them? And I don't, and again, I have hired all different personalities, all different there for me, there's no I mean, they're just a person. So I don't have any preconceived notions of, what they should look like or what they should talk like or what I mean, I've definitely hired people who absolutely disagree with my stand on a lot of things. But that was okay. I believe, and I have so far never been proven wrong, that there's not some piece of a person you can't learn to love. And if you can find that one piece, then you can kind of forgive the rest. Um, and that was really my philosophy, and to have fun at work. I mean, if you don't like that person, even on interview, which should be their best shot, I mean, why on earth do you want to still be working with them 10 years later? And again, I mean, I have people that my personality just drove them over the edge, and they would tell me that. And that's okay. I would say, I know, but I'm so much more fun than you are. So, anyway,
Oh my gosh.
uh,
Well, there is when you can step back and kind of think about like, but what part of this person is so great, because you're right. I agree with you anyway. So at least the two people on this podcast agree. There is some aspect of everybody that is
Right,
just you can appreciate.
right,
You don't have to
right,
love it. You don't have to embody it yourself. But
right,
but there's people I just look at them and I think, "You are so special in that way." And even though it bugs me, I'm so happy because I wouldn't do it. Like, I
right.
wouldn't express myself in that way, and it's kinda goofy, but I so love it, and I can see its impact, positive impact on others, you know? Because my
Yeah,
personality is I'm not that person. But, oh
yeah.
my god, that how they add to the group is just like
Beautiful.
light. Yep, it is beautiful, but you kinda have to get past your own self on that.
You're right. You're right.
Yeah. And you're doing home care, so, you're gonna be dealing with a lot of different people and different personalities, and to have people who can adapt and kind of be different in those situations while still being super qualified is important.
And it takes a certain person because when you have a patient in the hospital, they're on your turf. I mean, the floors are cleaned a certain way, the trays are cleaned, the food, no matter what you want to say about the food, it's prepared a certain way. When you walk in their front door, you are on their turf, and they might have 10 cats and 3 dogs and a horse that walks around in the living room, literally. Um, and you have to try to do the best healthcare, whatever you're doing when you enter that home in their environment, and you have to respect them. So it does take a certain personality to be able to embrace that, because you're going in all neighborhoods, from the wealthy neighborhoods to the very poorest neighborhoods where there's a lot of bugs that weren't invited to the party that came. So, it is definitely a different environment.
So given that, how do you or did you I know you sold that company and now you're doing it in a contractor role, but I'm thinking of you have a team and they have these wide swings of environments and they probably have days that they feel so successful because they see their patients are doing well and other days where they're just frustrated because they're thinking if not for this specific incident in that environment they could be doing better, and so they take maybe some of that on. How do you help people like not necessarily ignore that but keep an even keel so they don't own all of the disparity and the ups and downs in that environment?
I think to be certainly successful in this home health or hospice, both of which are primarily done in a patient's home. You it's not like at the hospital where you can go in at a certain time and leave at a certain time. You know you're about to leave this patient on their own with whatever teaching you've given them. So it is a different feeling. I think that, and of course, with hospice, you have all of your patients are terminal. I mean, there's no one who's going to make it through that. I'm not saying that occasionally a person doesn't get better, but I would say the parameters of the program that it is that everyone is terminal and it just depends when, which we really all are if you get down to it. Some people just know their expiration date a little bit closer than the rest of us. But I think that the way to help them with that is laughter and fun and not trying to help them take themselves not so seriously all the time, having memorials. We had a hospice that the census or the total patient count was about 110. One weekend, they had 35 patients die. I mean, that is over a third of their census, just a devastating amount. We did a lot of work. We did, all kinds of memories or memorials, if you will, to work through that. all kinds of, and Texans believe in eating and doing things together. There's a lot of food involved, a lot of conversations, a lot of communications, but also times to let people just have a release. And that release, a lot of times, is in laughter. How do we make lighter of a very difficult situation? And not disrespectful, but just someone, there has to be a cork that gets released,
Yeah.
or they blow up and they burn out and they have to move on.
What do you think is the future of home health care and services like that? And because different states have different supports in that way, even though it's government Medicare types things. Um, what do you see the future of that industry being? Do you see it getting bigger, staying the same? Are people coming in to be the providers of that?
I I think regardless, the Medicare program, now you have Medicare and Medicaid doing services in the home. Medicaid, you would have to qualify for financially. Medicare is across the board, to whatever socioeconomic level you fall into. So I think that those type services are expanding regardless of the budget cuts when I'm talking about Medicare. Medicaid, of course, I don't know how quickly this will be published, but it is taking a cut, and depending upon the state, it's taking a cut big or little. And I will tell you that hospice has proven to save the Medicare program billions of dollars, and yet there's still people who want to come in and try to cut that program. I believe, and you can see this, when I was young, there was nothing like an ALF, an assisted living facility, or an independent living facility. There was, I mean, I knew there was a nursing home and there was others. So you see lots of things like that that are kind of home care related, that are adding layers. People want to stay at home, especially the baby boomer generation. They have never been satisfied with what we considered the status quo. And we're seeing that that is not the case as we've seen all these other services go forward. I'm always concerned about what Congress is going to do one way or another, and certainly have done my level of lobbying, not paid lobbying, just me on the fight for Medicare, home services, and services at home. I think they will expand regardless of whether, the government cuts them back or doesn't, because they save money. I mean, it's cheaper to provide care at home than it is in the hospital. And certainly there's less infections. There's less, hospital acquired, infections. Um, there is a time you have to go, but the truth is, these services, if we would expand them, could take care of almost everything except your ICU type services. But again, there has to be people that are speaking up for that. And a lot of people, I mean, this is where it breaks down. Private pay people will get more services than people who can't afford that.
I just know personally, like when my sister needed home health care after all the stuff that was going on for her, um, it was so amazing when the folks would come in for 1 hour, right? And
Yeah,
work.
right.
It was like, we see you, we see your environment, we see what
Mhm.
possible support you have here. We also see the excuses you're giving us, but
Right.
in a loving way, right? Is
Yeah.
she? Not really. When they you eat dinner with them or whatever, but just the attention to her needs, and they were
Uh-huh.
solely focused on her, and I thought, and it didn't take long, but it
Yeah.
was validating and also kind of a nice net, so she didn't have to go in to see the doctor or urgent care or anything else. So, which is why I asked what you see about that, because I don't know, especially if you're in a rural or a distance area, you're not going to be running in somewhere all the time.
It's, I mean, this audience probably isn't as interested in having what I would really say for too long of a period of time, but I'll just say this: home health is where, or hospice is where it's at. I mean, that we should be pouring money into those programs, and yet, the home health industry doesn't have billions of dollars in lobby for our congressman. Now, my congressman who just retired last year, and I have a new one, but a man who was there for 25 years, a doctor, he listened. He could not give me everything. That was okay, but he did fight for some things. I know that it has to be middle ground, but we need people who will really step out and stand up for these kind of services. Because if you have had them, 90% of those are very good experiences. They're a bad experience. I mean, go to the hospital. I mean, come on.
Hey, you know what? Hospitals are okay if you have to go there, but
Right.
if you can stay out, you can stay healthier, right? Because there's
Yeah.
just even the best of hospitals, things get transmitted. So
Right.
you can stay healthy, stay out. Um, I'm starting to feel that way. Like I love PAs. I love,
Yeah.
we're super in their area, but they will spend the time and
Right.
then they can get the
Listening.
doctor, you know.
Right.
So I was just curious, like where you're seeing stuff go, because I like your vision of it. And as a boomer, I don't want to be warehoused.
That's right. That's right. My dream is to find a bunch of people and do my own ALF, not be even in an ALF where I'm paying for it with a bunch of people I don't know. But I don't know if I'm going to pull that off or not, but that's kind of my goal.
I talked about that with a group of women friends like 20 years ago. They said, let's just chunk out some property, live on it. And as long as your husbands are alive, they can live there too, but we're going to stay, right? Everybody
Well,
contributes.
if you had like 6 houses all together, you could have one caretaker and they could just go from house to house to house to house. So you could have community meals. I mean, I do know some people, truly, I do know some people who are doing this
And they're doing it and they're liking it. They're doing it well.
and they're liking it. They're doing it well. So it's crazy.
I may have to follow up with you on that.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, so any last things you want to say about your book? Because I know we've touched on it, then jumped out of it, and then touched on it again.
I just happen to have a copy right here. So I will say, I think it's a simple, straightforward read. I think there are some good practical things that you can apply within the book. um I It's always the application of the information that's the problem, right? We can read about the diet and the exercise and all that, but if we don't get up out of the couch or out of the house and off the couch, then none of that information really helps, right?
Exactly.
It's my long ago, and I'll tell the story really quick, but my father, who was not the healthiest of people in his approach. And I went with him to the cardiologist, and he was telling the cardiologist he walked. Well, he did not walk. He might have walked to the mailbox and back. And I was just shaking my head. And the doc said, Tommy, you have to actually start the car and drive it out of the garage if you really want to see what's wrong with the engine. Just sitting it in the garage is not going to work. So I would say, wherever you are on your leadership journey, and my goal is the last day I learn something will be the last breath I take on this earth. Truly my personal goal. But this book will help you take a different look at how you might approach what conventional people teach in MBA programs. Don't hire your friends. Don't be close to them. Don't let them come to your house. Don't drop your guard. That is that is a shallow life, if you ask me, according to Marcylle Combs, which again, they didn't pay for the podcast, so therefore they're getting it for free, right? So they just got the free advice. So you know what you can do with that. So anyway.
Well, I actually can, one of my favorite companies, organizations, and people ask the director, how do you do this? How do you have people who want to work here even when you don't have openings? And how do your people stay so long? I think you just described it.
Oh,
I think you did.
yes.
That's the secret sauce for her anyway. And she's been super successful. So, but I think I might share the book with her younger people who are just figuring out the leadership stuff.
I would love that. I would love that. Share it with come one, come all.
Come one, come
So,
all. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to leave you with the last word of wisdom
okay.
to take us out of the show. So share your final thoughts.
My final thoughts is don't forget to enjoy the journey. Have people you can laugh with and you can enjoy, and you listen to their crazy viewpoints on things that you think, have they lost their minds? Have a good time along the way and make a difference in some people's lives.
So there you have it, listeners. We will be back next week with another episode. And if you took something away from this particular podcast, how could you not? Please share it with a friend, family member, colleague, someone who's somewhere on their leadership journey. Just share it. And of course, we would love for you to rate and